Hey, what's going on, neighbors of South Fulton? Daniel Frankson here, your real estate resource. Just wanted to make a quick video just to chat about one of the major changes in our current real estate market, and that's what we kind of know this process as iBuying. Many of you may have received in your mail at some point in time an offer from a company such as OfferPad, offering to buy your home cash without you having to put the house on the market for sale. And for some of our neighbors in our various communities on our side of town have definitely jumped at the opportunity to do this. So I just wanted to take a quick moment to kind of digest whether or not going that route is the best way for you to get as much money out of your home if you are ready to sell, right? And so I have 3 quick points that I'm going to go over. And again, this is pertaining to the iBuying process. So again, if you're familiar with OfferPad or Orchid or Open Door, for example, that's what we're referring to when we speak about iBuying, right? So the first point that I want to make, usually one of the pitches that these companies give is that you're gonna save money. You're gonna save money because you're not gonna have to pay a realtor. And so on the surface, that sounds like a good idea. It sounds good. You're not gonna have to pay a commission. But there's some information that's missing from that statement, right? One thing that you should keep in mind is that all of these companies do charge a service fee. Now, on average, that service fee is about 5%. So if we analyze that compared with, usually if you go with a realtor to list your home, it may be at about 6%. So when you hear 5%, you might say, okay, well, it's a percent less. So that saves me a bit of money. So not bad, right? However, a couple things you have to take into consideration. There's a 5% service fee. And then these companies usually have you pay anywhere from 1 to 3% in closing costs. So now we've gone from 5% to 6 to 8%. I think my math is right on that, right? 5 plus 3 is 8. Yeah, man, 5 plus 3 is 8. So you now go from 5% to anywhere from 6 to 3%, depending on if it's 1% or 3% on your closing costs. So now again, just for comparison's sake, get your realtor 6% to list. With one of these programs now, you're looking at anywhere from 6 to 8%. So you could be 2% higher, right? The other key factor in that, because you might be saying, well, Daniel, if I negotiate with a buyer, I'm working with a realtor, I may have to contribute some money towards the buyer's closing costs. That's a point that we'll probably touch on another time, because right now in the current market, based on the demand, we're seeing closing costs is almost like a thing of the past, right? Sellers aren't paying closing costs or contributing towards a buyer's closing costs at all. So that might be a null and void point. But the other factor that you have to keep in mind when going through one of these programs is that once they come in and they do a further assessment, they're then going to let you know what it's going to cost for them to do the necessary repairs so that they can acquire the property. And I believe on average, you're looking at another 1 to 2% in this case, right? So again, 5% service fee, closing costs 1 to 3%, and a repair cost 1 to 2%. So if you analyze it, and if we just go on the low end with everything, 5% service fee, 1% closing cost, 1% repair cost, you're already at 7%. If we go on the high end, 5% service fee, 3% for your closing costs, you're at 8%. And then let's say 2% for your repairs, you're now looking at 10%. So quite a bit higher. So that's the first reason why I say you might want to be cautious when looking at one of these programs, right? The second point that I will make is this. In the current market, or really in any market, as a homeowner that's looking to sell their home, one of your primary goals should be to get as much money for your home as you can, right? That's why we'd want to sell. We buy our homes with the hope of gaining positive equity so we can put some money in our pockets at the closing table. Now, if you go through one of these programs, what you have to keep in mind is that it's business for them. So it's all about numbers on their end. So what they're going to pay you to acquire your property is going to be completely different from what they're going to sell your property for in 3 months once it's back on the market. I give you a quick example. We have one of our neighborhoods in South Fulton, actually in the Camp Creek area, this particular home. And the homeowners sold to one of these programs for about $550,000. So not a bad price. They didn't have to deal with any showings. They didn't have to, anything like that. 550,000 cash, easy transaction. They moved on. I believe it was 3 weeks to a month later, that home was back on the market and under contract. Now, the company didn't sell the home until 3 months after they had acquired it, and they primarily did that for tax purposes. There's something about you have to hold the property for 90 days before you can resell it, so you don't get hit heavily with taxes. But that aside, they acquired the property, had a contract on it in less than a month, and when that property closed 3 months after they acquired it, they sold it for almost $650,000. So you're talking about within 3 months, they almost made a 6-figure come up. So the question you then have to ask yourself is, would that homeowner have been able to get that price themselves if they would have just listed and gone on the market that way? Which leads to the third point. When you're considering these iBuy programs, it's important to understand this. The current real estate market, as many of you know, is chaotic. And it's not so much chaotic for homeowners when they're selling. It's really chaotic on the buyer's end. And that really comes down to just basic supply and demand. Supply, homes for sale, is limited, and the demand, the number of buyers on the market, is extremely high. So when you go through one of these programs, what you're essentially doing is giving up all of your leverage, which is the demand. If you cut out all of the buyers on the market and you focus in on one buyer, you're not on the market, so you're focused on one buyer, you have given up the leverage of demand, right? And in a market like this, where buyers are willing to do what seems like almost anything to win out on bids and get a house closed, it's definitely not something that you want to miss out on, right? Like the example that I gave you, if that homeowner would have listed the property themselves, gone through the process, sold, they could have walked away with an additional 6 figures, right? So for those that are contemplating going through one of these iBuy programs and you're thinking to yourself, well, I don't really want to deal with the hassle of, getting a house prepared for showings, and I don't really want people in and out my house, and I just kind of want to just make this a smooth, simple process. It's a fair argument, all fair points. But what you would have to ask yourself is, how much is showing your home for a couple of days? Because the reality is, with the right marketing, experienced realtor, you're going to get offers within the first, 48 to 72 hours, right? So you'd have to ask yourself, is bypassing showings, is that really worth $50,000? Is it worth $75,000? I mean, what's that worth to you? And so when you answer that question, I think you'd then be able to determine whether or not it makes sense for you to sell your home to one of these programs like Orchid or Open Door, or if going the traditional route will make more sense so that you can increase your opportunity to make as much money as possible from the sale of your home. So anyway, hope this information was helpful. Again, if you guys ever have any questions real estate related, feel free to reach out to me. Always happy to chat about real estate 7 days a week. I'm available. You can find all of my contact information below. And let's continue together as a community on the south side to push and fight so that we're getting the values that our homes are worth. All right. Again, Daniel Frankson, look forward to catching up with you guys soon. Take care.